All right, let's talk about something we all feel. This age of outrage we seem to be living in. It feels like everyone is on edge. Well, in a really powerful conversation with Oprah Winfrey, Franciscan friar Richard Rohr actually lays out a kind of spiritual map for getting through it. He offers a way to find a little bit of hope, even when it feels like it's totally out of reach. And Oprah really kicks things off by hitting the nail on the head. She just comes right out and says it. So many of us are feeling this deep sense of unease. And, just acknowledging that we all share this feeling of disruption and anxiety, that's the real starting point. It kind of sets the stage for a much bigger, much deeper question.
So, yeah, why is this happening? Why are we all so angry, so divided? To even begin to find an answer, Richard Rohr says we have to look somewhere we might not expect. We actually need to understand the nature of sadness. And that idea, that's what leads us right into the core of his work.
Okay, so this central idea of Rohr's, it all starts with a concept he calls the wisdom of tears.
This whole idea is actually rooted in a really old Latin phrase, lacrimae rerum, which literally means the tears of things. And what it points to is this fundamental, kind of tough truth that sorrow and tragedy, they're just woven into the very fabric of life. It's not something we can avoid or ignore. And Rohr really expands on this. He says that everything seems to be crying out, and everything deserves our tears. Now, you might think, wow, that sounds really depressing. But he argues it's the total opposite. Recognizing this universal sadness in ourselves and other people, even in the planet itself, is actually a profound spiritual act. It's about connection. Think about it, right? He says our tears, they often come out of nowhere. They're uninvited. They come from a place that's so much deeper than our rational mind. And in those moments, that's when our truest, most loving self is revealed. Our tears connect us to what we genuinely feel, not just what we think we should feel. Okay, so if we're all connected by this deep, underlying sadness, why does it so often come out as anger? Why all the division? Well, this is where Rohr offers a really sharp diagnosis for what's going on in our world today. And he gives a really stark warning here. He says that if we just stay stuck in our rage and resentment for too long, it's like a poison. We don't just hurt other people, we end up doing profound damage to our own souls. We get trapped in this cycle of just passing our hurt on to the next person.
So where does this all lead? Well, it leads to what happens when an entire culture just stops valuing truth. Rohr calls this nihilism. It's that state where obvious lies aren't just accepted, they're actually cheered for. And for him, this is the absolute root of the problem. And you can see the fallout from that, right? When truth doesn't matter anymore, the ego just takes over and runs wild. We completely lose the ability to look at ourselves or our own side and be critical. This leads to what Rohr calls group narcissism. It's that mindset where all the problems in the world, they're always someone else's fault. The other is always the evil one. So that's the bad news. The big question is, how do we break this cycle? Is there a way out? Rohr says yes, and he lays out a clear path away from all this outrage and back toward real connection. He says there are basically two universal paths, two experiences that have the power to just wake a person up no matter who you are or what you believe. The first is a great love, caring for someone or something so much you would weep for them. And the second is a great suffering, that inevitable moment when you encounter tragedy and loss. Both of these things, he says, have the power to crack that ego wide open. And this leads to one of the most powerful insights from all of Rohr's work, something he learned especially from working with men. He realized that so often, what looks like anger on the outside, it's really just deep, unacknowledged sadness on the inside. He tells them, many of you are not angry. You're sad.
Wow. I mean, think about that. The author Jason Wilson just captures this idea perfectly. He reframes the word thug into an acronym, THUG. It stands for a traumatized human unable to grieve. It's such a powerful way to see how unresolved pain and trauma so often gets expressed as aggression. So, this gives us a kind of framework for how to grow through all this. Rohr says we all start in a place of what he calls order. Our worldview is stable, things make sense, but then life happens, and it inevitably brings disorder, chaos, suffering, the messy stuff. Now, here's the key. The goal isn't to scramble back to that old neat sense of order. The real goal is to get to reorder, which is where you integrate both the good and the bad to arrive at a much higher, more compassionate understanding of everything.
And this whole journey, this whole process, it's all building toward one ultimate goal: living what he calls a generative life. A life that's not just about you and your ego, but about what you create and give back to the world. To really drive this point home, Rohr tells this incredible old story, this parable, about an angel seen walking through the world. And this angel has carrying two things: a pail of water in one hand and a burning torch in the other. And when someone asks the angel, "What are you going to do with those?" the angel gives this shocking answer: "With the water, I'm going to put out the fires of hell, and with the torch, I'm going to burn down the mansions of heaven." I mean, whoa, why would an angel do that? The parable's answer is profound. Because only when you get rid of the whole system of rewards and punishments, only then will we find out who really loves God, who acts out of pure, unconditional love, instead of just fear of hell or a desire for a heavenly reward. And that right there, that's the whole point. That's what a truly well-lived, generative life is. It's a life that generates love. It creates positive movements. It inspires other people. It's about liberating and affirming others, not standing on the sidelines judging them. So this really leaves all of us with a final lingering question to think about. If we could just let go of the need to win, the need to be right all the time, the need to judge everyone else, who would we be? Who would we become if our only motivation was truly and simply love?